Welcome to another episode of Fist Chairs and Grey, where today I am joined by Gemma Hardell, who's a relationship therapist.
It doesn't have to be that there's a lack of love. It could just be that there's things that have changed or people's needs might want to try something with a new partner just to forget that sense of a.
Really, or are they sort of moments of your life, if you like?
Yeah, good question. I think every relationship is a moment of your life, really. So I don't think that open and non-monogamous relationships are any different. I think relationships are kind of, maybe there's a season, reason, or a lifetime. And that has various different influences depending on what your connection is, depending on who you are as personalities, how much dopamine seeking there is in the relationship, what the sex is like, what the kind of, you argue as well. So if you're always condemning each other, criticizing, getting highly defensive, or shutting down and stonewalling, it's a sign, it's a recipe for disaster. So there's just so many different parts. I think it's actually very hard to do any relationship, to be honest, for a very, very long time. And a lot of people do have open relationships or more flexible arrangements. We even call it monogamish as well, relationships, which they add more flexibility and maybe they add more spice. And sometimes they really ignite other people's sex lives as well. So you might, see your partner through the eyes of another, see someone getting dressed up to go out on a date and think, wow, my wife or my husband's really desired by someone else. And it can reignite a kind of passion and eroticism within the relationship as well.
Do you find that with open relationships, and it's sort of a broad question, but do you find that women are more forgiving and open to them than men are? I can imagine men going, "Oh yeah, I like the idea of this open relationship," as men would do, and then sort of find themselves still at home every night while their wife's going out, thinking, "Yeah, I didn't imagine it was going to go this way." Do
Yep.
you find that women
That's,
sort of
yep.
cope with it a lot better?
Think that the women, because of like how dating apps go as well, women get, I don't know what the percentage is, but let's just say like 10 times more likes, matches than men get. So I think when men think, oh, well,
Do
this is
they?
going to be great. I mean, I think even more, to be fair. From what I kind of understand of dating apps, you can have a very handsome, good-looking guy on a dating app, and he will definitely get less matches and likes than the average woman on a dating app, um, just because of how it works. Women are just kind of, men. I think men do a numbers game on a dating app where they just like everyone, and so then women looking at these dating apps and just thinking, "Well, God, I've got 8,000 likes. How am I going to sift through that amount? It's a full-time job. It's too difficult." So, I think that guys go into this thinking it's going to be, tit for tat or parity and everything. And it's like, oh, you're going to do that and I'm going to do that. And the reality is, it doesn't work like that. If you go into it with just that mindset of what you're getting, then that is never going to be a strong enough anchor to have like a secure base from, because a lot of the time you will see your wife getting hit on by a lot more people. She will get a lot more dates, but whether those dates are quality is to be questioned. You know, um, Guy could get much fewer matches, fewer dates, but maybe the quality of those dates is actually higher.
So in terms of um, sort of thruples now, do you find that is a good combination? Because I know, and I've heard sort of a couple of stories of women that once they sort of post menopause, where the sex wasn't high on their agenda, they found themselves far more drawn to women because they provided a lot more of the emotional support and the emotional intelligence that they actually wanted. So they could do without the sex if they fancied women. Then it's great. It's an all in package. But if not, they were still get being met on all these different levels, and then they could maybe go into sort of a throuple. Do you find that more women sort of are leaning towards that dynamic where they can get more out of everyone?
Get more out of everyone. I mean, it's definitely
No,
on
I
the
mean
increase.
you got a woman there that
Can
is going.
enjoy. Yeah.
provide you with mental stimulation, and the guy, if you need him, can do the things that you want the guy to do, which
Yeah, I
from
mean,
speaking to a
sometimes you
lot of
can just
women.
order the guy in, that's, it can be a takeaway, can't it? You can have a really nice relationship with a woman and then you can just get a takeaway every now and again.
Like a pizza.
And that can change. You can eat a different flavor every single night of the week as well, being two women together.
But I mean, with a permanent man in the relationship, because
What's
I've heard of
permanent?
like
Right, okay. We've got to stick to
there's a
one.
no, I'm thinking because I know there's a couple of celebrities now that are sort of are in these throuple relationships. One of them is Dave. I'm thinking of David Hay, and I always wonder
Oh,
how
yeah.
that works. For me, it would frighten. I would always feel that I would get left out, so it would always be a concern for me that I was sort of there, just there taking the bins out. I'm thinking I'm
Bins
more
need
like a
taking out,
butler.
Elliot.
I feel more like a butler in this throuple of ours than anything else, really.
Bills and bins are important, Elliot. That's for sure.
So, do you
And
think
yeah,
their
I think
dynamics
you
at
have
work?
to be good at like navigating and, I've worked on the jealousy part, I guess, or worked on the I feel left out, I'm not feeling chosen, I'm feeling um like I want more attention. You have to be able to communicate that as well. So you have to be able to say, oh, hey, actually, this feels a bit unfair, or this feels, I need a little bit more of X, Y, Z, whatever it is. I need a little bit more attention, I need a little bit more affection. Can I have a date night with both of you? Can I have a date night individually? It's communicating, isn't it? If when you're starting to feel a bit jealous or you're starting to feel left out, it's
To know you
communicating there.
that just sounds needy.
No.
I think if you just, I'm imagining myself saying that, and I would just think to myself, "You sound so needy."
Okay, so that's a really old fashioned way to look at we all have needs. And so if you don't communicate what your needs are, how will your needs ever get met? And people are not, this is why relationships fail a lot because people don't, oh, I don't want to be needy. I don't want to be too much. I don't want to be, an inconvenience. Oh, I don't want to, be vulnerable. Well, this is exactly why we have to do that. It's exactly why, when you do have that kind of feeling of, oh, I'm feeling a bit like this and, I don't want to tell anyone. Well, no, because you're a human and you have got needs and they are important. And it is okay to get your needs met and it's okay to talk about what your needs are.
I'll note that if I'm ever in a throuple, can we open the door now, please, so I can come in?
And I've been in a throuple before. It was fun.
So that brings me nicely to my next question then, because as a therapist and with sort of sexual therapists, if you like, do you think in a professional capacity, it's important as if your therapy is around sex, that you should have a broad understanding of these relationships? Because it's like with relationships experts who have been in the same relationship for the last 25, 30 years. Yes, you can say that they must be very good at it because they're in the same relationship. But on the other hand, I would argue, well, I've had like 100 of these relationships that have lasted 6 months. So I've got far more experience of just shorter relationships and people. So as sort of a therapist, do you think that's a big advantage for you that you've had this sort of vibrant life and you've led a life already?
Yeah, I think it's an absolute benefit and a plus for my clients and for me in life, actually, because people need to have someone that can actually understand the dynamics as well and also don't bring their own judgment and shame into the room. And I think this is what can happen a lot while people don't. If they want to go to a therapist, they want to speak to someone about their relationship problems or their multiple dynamics or their affair partner, but they feel such a lot of shame and stigma and judgment that it just stops people getting the help that they actually really need or the support or the guidance even or the coaching. Coaching's like another part of it. So, the fact that when my clients sit in front of me, because I'm quite open about my story, because I share a lot about my past relationship styles, they choose me based on the fact I don't think she's going to judge me here. I think I'm in safe hands. So already it enables us to have a much deeper connected relationship, therapeutically.
Standing if you hadn't have actually been in those situations yourself?
I don't know. I think that it was really key to have this lived experience and that I can really understand it. And I can also see things that might be happening for the clients through my lived experience as well, but to be able to kind of, you know, open up their eyes or to be able to open up a conversation. It's not about me sitting in the kind of, 50 minutes together and telling them all about my life, but it's to be able to ask the right questions or to be able to spot things that are happening and to sometimes educate partners on that and couples on that as well. What is the dynamic that's happened here? And because I've lived it, you can walk through that tunnel and you can take someone else with you out the other side when you've done it yourself, in also probably a lot shorter amount of time as well, because you're really understanding what the pains are. You're not just trying to be a therapist that's trying to understand, okay, so you're there, you see them that often, and all the language, especially if it's like open relationships, like, okay, well, they're my constellation partner. This is my nesting partner. This is my thruple, the thruple, the polycule, everything, like I understand all these dynamics. So you're not educating the therapist. So I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of other relationships. First of all, it's like, well, I've got to go and educate this therapist on what this all means. And actually, I don't know how they feel. And maybe that could be triggering for a therapist because they don't have a level of deep understanding about it. So yeah, I definitely believe it's a benefit for my clients that I've lived the life that I have for sure.
So the people that are coming to see you, obviously you said previously that you have men and obviously you have women that are having affairs. Do you find that the underlying problems or the underlying issues for them are similar because they're people, or are they very almost gender specific to sort of women will suffer with like these issues that they're trying to get over, where men will have these issues that they're trying to get over?
I think it's quite actually more similar than you think, actually. People are looking for connection. And with people who are in kind of second relationships, they still just want the connection. They still want to feel alive and they still want to be able to feel loved and understood. Sometimes men can have more casual flings, actually. I find that women are in more long-term relationships and men maybe they can kind of have more hookups and things. But on a whole, I think everyone is actually using sex as a way to get intimacy, which is a way to get connection without blowing the rest of their lives up a lot of the times. Quite often people, and I read different posts and things online, it's like, well, you can't have been in a happy marriage if you had another lover or had another wife or had another, you had an affair. How's that a happy marriage? But it depends how we define what a happy marriage is as well. Because if you think, okay, well, it is actually you can still love your partner, but you can still be attracted to other people. It's a kind of society construct that we live in this monogamous cultures. And to say that a happy marriage is never, fancying other people, it's unrealistic. We're human beings. We get tempted by things and understanding, well, maybe there were parts of you that never got the hot girl at school, and now you're a successful guy in the city. Or now all the women are throwing themselves at you. And that's quite a lot to deal with for guys, actually. It's quite a lot to go, well, what do I do with all this now financial success? And what do I do with all this kind of value that women and women are also hunting for those men as well? So where before maybe women would wait and they would kind of wait for a man to approach them. Now the girls, they're out there, the women out there are just saying like, hey, I like you. I know you've got a wife. I know you've got a, partner, but I still want to enter into this dynamic with you. And they're unapologetic about it as well.
And do you find that with those women, they're quite happy to be an affair a lot of the time, or are men quite happy to be an affair because it's sometimes it's an easy option to be the affair, isn't it? It's there's a lot less complications sometimes just to be someone's affair because you're kind of getting the good stuff and you can walk away with it.
Yeah, you get the good stuff. You don't do the bills and bins, right? That's what I always say to the clients. It's like there's a sweet spot with it.
Always bills and bins. There's
Bills and
always bills
bins.
and bins.
You know,
There's
you're not
always
doing the
bills and bins.
parenting. You're not doing the parenting with that person. If they're, if they're your lover, you're going out on the hot dates, you're probably staying in the hotels, you're having better chemistry sex because it's new, it's novelty, it's exciting. There's a new person. You've got all that kind of attraction and desire, all the neurochemicals as well of like oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine and endorphins and everything. So there's just much more to kind of keep that sense of aliveness and that sense of eroticism in a new relationship, where if you then put that relationship, it tests that under the stress and the pressure of modern day living, where it's in a kind of nuclear family. And yeah, I think it's really difficult to do. I think it's really hard to do that nuclear family.
So I know you've got a daughter and I've got a son as well. For them growing up, and your daughter's a lot younger than my son, but for them growing up, do you think relationships are going to look very different?
Yeah, I mean, they're already looking different now. And also, I think that we've got, my daughter, she's 13, she goes to school and she says, oh, actually, half of her friends at school are queer as well. So, we've just got so much more expansion of the world that we can try and, a lot less stigma and shame and everything. So I think relationships are we're looking at the boomer kind of generation as well, and then maybe like our generation, and thinking, well, 54%, if not higher, of marriages end in divorce.
Yeah,
So what's happening? Something's not working here, but also we're living longer, aren't we? So before, if we were getting married, our grandparents, there was one person for life. Now it's can be one person at a time as well.
yeah,
So, we're living, until our kind of 80s, 90s. But we've got the world of, options at our fingertips on these devices that we're walking around with, just like, a dating whirlpool of, globally as well at the fingertips, where people flying in from different countries and everything. So temptation's never been higher. Um, and but also stigma and shame are kind of dropping as well, I think, with doing different relationship styles. So I do think that, you know, my daughter is 13. Yeah, we could go completely back to the old fashioned ways, which is a kind of this whole trad wife thing. There's a bit of a resurgence of like traditional wife and traditional values that's happening online. But I think that, most of it is going to become a bit more fluid going forwards.
yeah. I think I know from my son's 23 now, and I know that the way that they meet people is very different. And I was talking this to him about the other day that, and we went out just for Christmas, and we was in place in Canary Wharf, and it reminded me of an old club that I went to, which they don't kind of have these days anymore. And I was sort of saying to him, and I think for him, he would have absolutely loved it because he
Hmm.
said like we don't, there's not those places anymore really. There's
Yeah.
bars and there's like the Soho houses. I get all that, but then they're not the same as sort of like the clubs of back in the day that you used to do laps around to meet people, and it's you know that they were just so great. They were just
Yeah.
fun days, and they've missed out on all of that, and they just meet in completely different ways now.
Yeah, that's so true. I listened to something that said basically when you make all those mistakes, because alcohol used to be something that was heavily, in the mix for our generation, didn't it?
Yeah,
We'd go out, you'd get, drinks were cheaper for a start. You could go out with a fiver and come home with maybe £6.50 in your pocket if you were a female, that's for sure. We were going out, we were drinking more, we were making more mistakes, but also we were having probably more courage to go and approach people in real life as well because of the amount of alcohol that we may be drinking. So we were, meeting more people, meeting them in real life because we didn't meet them on screens, that's for sure. And now that we just, the cost of alcohol and the cost of going out is so
yeah,
high that it's really, you're not going to go out, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday night, which we might have done back in the day when we were younger. I'll speak for myself actually. But, you know, now it would cost us a fortune. You'd have to have a, you know, a mega career, wouldn't you, to sustain that type of living? And also people are health conscious as well, aren't they, about, you know, the effects of alcohol and late nights and everything. So we've got a little bit more kind of health conscious, but also the price point as well is kind of, yeah, it's pricing people out of going out for these kind of random drunk nights that you end up bumping into the future love of your life.
For the next week, anyway. So the last thing, Jim, before I wrap up, is look on your Instagram. I do like some of the posts, but one of the most interesting one that I think will help a lot of guys. And I know there was a story behind it as well because you told me that was the 45-minute post that you put out there.
45. Oh, that's yeah. Yeah, I think that came off a back of me having a little bit of an encounter with someone. And then I think that what happened there is I actually came home and had a bit of a ranty post myself of like women need time spent on their bodies, but, you know, not just this kind of, you know, this quickness. We want slow, we want pacing. And I said, there's a minimum of 45 minutes, you know, of foreplay, I think you're talking about. But I don't even like the word foreplay because I think it's, you know, that is sex, isn't it? It's like all the good, the yummy stuff, the play, the fun, the touching, you know, the teasing and everything. If men did a lot more of that, I think women would be more into having sex.
So I've said that to a lot of guys, and I've said you need to look at this post. You need to look at this and a couple of them said in 45 minutes I want to have brushed my teeth, washed my face, and gone to bed and watched the film.
Exactly. That's the problem.
Listen, Gemma, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on and talking to you about relationships because I do find it fascinating now. I will make sure we put all your details on there and people can come
That's
along to your
amazing.
Instagram and check you out as well. But thank you for joining me. Guys, thank you for joining Fish Chase and Grey. Do hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow, and we'll catch up soon. Take care. Bye bye.